The restaurant buzzed softly with the low hum of conversations, clinking glasses, and candlelight dancing across polished tables. Amelia Kane, a woman whose very name commanded boardrooms and headlines, sat by the window, her wheelchair tucked neatly beneath the linen-draped table. She adjusted her blazer, hiding her trembling hands, though no one would have guessed the CEO of a billion-dollar tech firm could feel nervous. Tonight wasn't about mergers or stockholders, it was a blind date arranged by her best friend. And though she masked it well, she feared this night would end in yet another disappointment. After her accident, romance had seemed like a door forever slammed shut. Her mind wandered back to the crash that changed everything. One moment, she had been driving home after a victory speech at her company's expansion event, and the next, she awoke in a hospital bed, unable to feel her legs. The months that followed were filled with surgeries, therapy, and the crushing silence of those who slowly drifted away, friends who didn't know what to say, and a fiancé who simply couldn't stay. She rebuilt her empire from her wheelchair, but her heart remained a fortress, untouched and afraid of the vulnerability love demanded. That was why this date felt more like torture than hope. She glanced at the clock, her jaw tightening. 20 minutes late. The man, whoever he was, clearly had no intention of showing. Amelia forced herself to remain composed, sipping water as if she were entirely in control, though inside she felt the sting of rejection. Of course, she whispered under her breath, why would anyone want this? She adjusted her sleeve, ready to ask for the check, determined to slip away before the humiliation deepened. But just then, the door opened, and someone unexpected walked in. He wasn't what she had imagined. Not the polished businessman with a rehearsed smile and designer suit her friend might have chosen. Instead, a tall man in a leather jacket and oil-stained jeans scanned the room nervously before spotting her. His hands were rough, his dark hair slightly disheveled, and his boots left faint marks on the floor. Amelia blinked, startled, as he approached with a sheepish grin. "You must be Amelia," he said, his voice steady but warm. "I'm Jake. Sorry I'm late, there was a car that wouldn't start, and I couldn't leave the customer stranded." Amelia's brows arched, her instincts clashing with her surprise. A mechanic. This couldn't be right. Her best friend surely hadn't meant to pair her with someone so different from her world. Yet something in Jake's smile disarmed her, pulling her away from her preconceived notions. She cleared her throat, her tone sharper than intended. "A mechanic on a blind date with a CEO. That's unexpected." Jake chuckled, unfazed, and slid into the chair across from her. "Yeah, I figured you'd say that. But I'm not here to impress you with my job. I'm here because I was told you like honesty. And I've got plenty of that." His words caught her off guard. Honesty was a currency she rarely encountered in her circles. Too often, people wanted something: money, power, connections. Yet here was a man who admitted his flaws before even lifting the menu. Amelia studied him cautiously, wondering if she was being played. But as the conversation stumbled into motion, she found herself laughing at his clumsy attempts to pronounce the French dishes. "Why do they make it so complicated?" Jake asked, squinting. "I mean, can't they just say chicken in sauce instead of whatever that is?" For the first time in years, Amelia's laughter wasn't calculated. It was real. Still, her guard refused to crumble completely. Between jokes and casual chatter, she challenged him, testing his sincerity. She asked about his work, expecting shallow answers, but Jake spoke of helping single moms who couldn't afford repairs, of fixing cars for free when people were stranded. He talked about his late father, who taught him that dignity wasn't about titles but about how you treated others. His words struck a chord, reminding Amelia of her own father, who once told her that kindness was the rarest form of strength. A lump formed in her throat, though she quickly masked it with a sip of water. The evening unfolded in ways she hadn't anticipated. She realized she was smiling more than she had in years. But doubt crept in when the waiter arrived with dessert menus. Amelia hesitated, staring down at her lap, at the chair that defined so much of her life now. She braced herself for the moment Jake would look at her differently, the way others always did when the reality of her paralysis settled between them like a shadow. "You don't have to pretend you're okay with this," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I know this isn't what you signed up for." Jake leaned forward, his expression shifting to something fierce and gentle all at once. "Amelia," he said quietly, "do you honestly think a chair makes you less? I walked in here expecting dinner, maybe a nice conversation. Instead, I got you, smart, sharp, funny as hell. Why would I care how you move when it's your heart that's already moving me?" The sincerity in his eyes disarmed her completely. For once, she didn't feel like a CEO carrying the weight of the world, or a woman trapped in brokenness. She just felt seen. Tears blurred her vision, though she blinked them back with all the stubbornness she had. "You're not what I expected," she admitted, her voice trembling between vulnerability and hope. Jake grinned softly. "Good. Because maybe what you expected wasn't what you needed." His words lingered, wrapping around her like a balm she hadn't known she craved. They spent the rest of the night talking as if time were no longer relevant, sharing stories, confessing fears, and daring to laugh at wounds life had dealt them both. When the waiter finally cleared their table, Amelia wasn't ready to leave. Outside, the night air was crisp, carrying the scent of rain on the horizon. Jake walked beside her, his stride steady, never once rushing or making her feel like she slowed him down. At the curb, he bent down slightly, meeting her eyes. "So, was it really a disaster?" he teased. Amelia smiled, a genuine, radiant curve of her lips. "No," she whispered. "It was exactly what I didn't know I was waiting for." For the first time since her accident, she felt lighter, as if the world wasn't closing in but opening again. The following days replayed their conversations in her mind like a favorite song. She caught herself smiling during board meetings, distracted by the memory of Jake's laugh. When he called to ask if she wanted to grab coffee, she said yes before doubt could interfere. Slowly, their worlds began to intertwine, the mechanic's garage buzzing with customers, the CEO's office brimming with suits and strategies. They didn't belong on paper, yet in reality, they fit in ways no spreadsheet could measure. Where she brought vision, he brought grounding; where she carried scars, he offered healing. Their connection wasn't without challenges. Paparazzi caught wind of the unlikely pair, headlines branding it as a scandalous mismatch. Investors raised eyebrows, whispering about distractions and reputations. Amelia, used to fighting battles with sharp words and steely resolve, found herself shaken by the judgment. But Jake held her hand through it all, reminding her that love wasn't about approval, it was about truth. "Let them talk," he said firmly one night. "They don't live in your heart. I do." His unwavering presence gave her strength to rise above the noise. With each passing week, Amelia discovered a part of herself she thought had died in the crash, the part that believed in joy, in second chances, in love that wasn't about perfection but about acceptance. Jake never once saw her chair as a limitation; instead, he saw the woman who built an empire from ashes, who laughed despite her pain, who dared to open her heart again. And in return, Amelia saw the man who fixed more than cars; he fixed the broken belief that she was unworthy of love. Months later, as they sat on a bench overlooking the city skyline, Amelia turned to him, her voice soft but steady. "You know," she said, "I thought that night was a disaster before it even began. But you walked in, and for the first time in years, I smiled like I meant it." Jake reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. "That's all I ever wanted," he murmured. "To give you a reason to smile again." And as the city lights shimmered around them, Amelia knew her story was no longer one of loss, it was one of love, resilience, and the beauty of unexpected beginnings.